One minute, they were the talk of the town and the role models of every kid in Pretoria. The next, everything vanished. The wealth, the prestige, the front page features on the tabloids. They were now nothing but mere criminals, petty thieves, the scum of South Africa. The Pretoria Gucci gang appeared out of nowhere, a group of young men draped in designer labels stepping out of luxury cars as if they had been born into the driver's seat. Pretoria had never seen anything like them. They weren't just rich, they were loud about it, turning every street into a runway and every gathering into an exclusive event. Their lifestyle wasn't just about money, it was about dominance, and social media made sure the world took notice. Instagram was their playground. They flooded timelines with images of Gucci tracksuits, Rolex watches, and stacks of cash fanned out like playing cards. TikTok and YouTube turned them into local celebrities, their videos dripping with excess. Champagne showers, high-end shopping sprees, and nights spent in the VIP section of Pretoria's most expensive clubs. It was the kind of lifestyle most could only dream of, and they knew exactly how to sell the fantasy. But the illusion was everything. Every post, every video, every carefully curated moment was designed to project a life of untouchable wealth and power. They weren't just flexing, they were crafting an image, making sure the world believed that they were Pretoria's elite. They wanted admiration, but more than that, they wanted envy, and they got it. Thousands followed their every move, desperate for a glimpse into the kind of life that seemed impossible to reach. Their influence stretched beyond Pretoria. Fans across South Africa saw them as proof that success was possible. If these young men could live like kings, why couldn't they? They became the face of a new kind of influencer culture, one built not on talent, business acumen, or even luck, but on the ability to convince the world they had already made it. Their popularity soared, but so did the whispers. Not everyone was convinced. Critics started questioning the source of their wealth. Real self-made millionaires didn't throw money around like confetti. Was it family money? Shady deals? Fraud? Rumors spread like wildfire. But the Gucci gang didn't address them. They doubled down, pushing their image even harder. Every accusation was met with another show of excess, another expensive car, another designer outfit, another video flaunting wealth. The more people doubted, the bigger they flexed. At first, the criticism was nothing more than background noise, drowned out by the applause of their loyal followers. But the skepticism was growing. Some started investigating, looking for cracks in their perfect facade. Questions surfaced. If they were truly that rich, why were there reports of bounced payments? Why were some of their designer items spotted on multiple people? Why did their businesses, if they had any, seem to exist only on paper? But behind the scenes, the cracks were already forming. Pretending to be rich is expensive. The lifestyle they projected wasn't cheap, and keeping up appearances became a full-time job. Some of their flashy cars weren't paid off. Some designer pieces were borrowed or rented. The money wasn't endless, and the pressure to maintain their image was relentless. It wasn't just about keeping up with the illusion, it was about outdoing themselves. Every post had to be bigger, every purchase had to be flashier, every flex had to be louder. The moment they stopped, people would start asking questions, and questions were dangerous. Fans started noticing inconsistencies. Stories didn't add up. Some members of the gang seemed to be living large one day and struggling the next. Some were seen in places that didn't match their supposed wealth. One week they were flaunting new cars, the next they were suspiciously quiet. Social media, the very tool that had built them up, was beginning to turn against them. Doubt crept in. Were they really as wealthy as they claimed, or was it all smoke and mirrors? Then came the memes. At first, they were playful, a joke about how quickly their money seemed to come and go. But soon, they turned into full-blown mockery. People dissected their posts, analyzing the details, exposing inconsistencies. Followers who once idolized them started pointing out flaws, duplicate outfits, questionable receipts, a luxury watch that suspiciously resembled a cheap replica. The internet was ruthless, and once the tide turned, there was no going back. As Pretoria watched, the Gucci gang's rise began to feel more like a balancing act, one misstep away from collapse. They had built their kingdom on perception, but perception is fragile. The illusion could only last so long, and behind closed doors, the real downfall had already begun. As the Pretoria Gucci gang became more well-known, so did the rumors. Once admiration, it started to fade when things weren't clear. Some people started to wonder where the group's money really came from. They made their own? Or was it all just a bunch of smoke? The way they lived was very fancy, but it was getting harder and harder to see how they could afford to keep up with their shows. Stories spread like wildfire. Claims of borrowed money and shady behavior began to come to light. Soon after, people began to think about fraud. What kind of speed did this group of young men use to get so rich? People began to wonder if their success was really the result of hard work or if they had taken shortcuts like using family money, doing business in shady ways, or even being dishonest. Their social media account, which used to be their crown jewel, was starting to work against them. This view was once seen as the height of wealth and luxury, but now it was seen with more cynicism. Every Instagram post and flashy YouTube video was looked at very closely, and the people's fronts began to show cracks. Once jealous supporters began to question whether or not what they were saying was true, it was said that the group's way of life was not in line with what most people thought. For all the bravado they showed on social media, there were more and more reports of unpaid bills, debts that were past due, and money problems. Some of their fancy cars, the ones that made them famous for their wealth, were said to be leased instead of owned. It looked like they were living on borrowed time their whole lives, and the truth was beginning to creep in. But the way people responded really made things worse. Their admiration quickly turned to doubt. It stopped being just about questioning their wealth and started being about whether or not everything they had made was right. It used to be a well-made picture of untouchable swagger, but now it looked like a house of cards that was about to fall apart. People whose way of life had amazed them now saw that they were getting angry. The people who had helped the group get where they were was getting annoyed by their constant need to show off their wealth. Social media, which used to be their stage, became where they fell apart. As they tried to show off their wealth, they made the fire worse. What had been a celebration of success felt like a last-ditch effort to keep up a front that was falling apart. As always, the internet started to change how people thought about the gang. People used to respect memes, but then memes started to take their place. The flashy pictures were once signs of wealth and success, but now they were made fun of. The Gucci gang's expensive lifestyle used to inspire a lot of people, but now it's just funny. The change took place quickly. Their quick fall was overshadowed by the rise of the Pretoria Gucci gang, which had the whole country excited, and the illusion they had worked on for a long time fell apart in an instant. They used to be very popular thanks to social media, but now it was hurting their popularity. What had been a celebration of wealth and power was now being closely looked at and finally made fun of. The story was shifting, and each new post or flex made the gap between what really happened and what people thought happened even bigger. People who used to like the Gucci gang now saw them for what they were, or what they seemed to be. It wasn't about how flashy and fancy their life was anymore, it was about the truth that finally came out. The public became even more disillusioned as the cracks got too big to ignore and their social media presence got worse. The more they tried to show how valuable they were, the more people left. It was once a sign of hope, but social media loved to spread that message so much that it became a cautionary tale. The public's view of the group changed quickly as their reputation began to fade. People who used to see them as a sign of success now saw them as a warning about what can happen when you live for fame without any real foundation. Because of social media and their flashy way of life, the Pretoria Gucci gang rose quickly, and it felt like an explosion was just around the corner. When would they fall? That was the question, not if. The whole world was watching, ready for them to fall apart. The cracks in their facade were already becoming clear. When the first big scandal happened, the Pretoria Gucci gang story became too weak to hold together any longer. The rumors of shady deals and wealth that were only heard in the background were now confirmed. There were claims of fraud, and all of a sudden, what had seemed like an untouchable success was being closely looked at. The rich lifestyle of the group was no longer admired by the authorities, but rather seen as a reason to be suspicious. Cracks quickly appeared, and the foundations of their wealth started to give way under the weight of their wealth. As the investigation into the fraud went deeper, some of the members found themselves in legal battles they hadn't planned to be in. The Gucci gang used to live a carefree life of fancy cars and parties, but now it all seemed like a far-off dream. They were arrested, sued, and their assets were frozen, taking away the freedoms they used to show off so freely. Their world, which didn't seem like it could be broken, was falling apart right in front of their eyes. It was quickly becoming clear that their life of excess was coming to an end, and no one could have predicted how quickly it would all fall apart. The legal issues were just the beginning. As the differences within the group got worse, there was a wave of betrayal going on behind the scenes. What had seemed like a close-knit group now felt more like a time bomb. Members started fights in public, where accusations flew and friends turned into rivals. People who were happy about their success together were now hurting each other. They preached loyalty, but it wasn't seen because of their own needs came before the goal that brought them together in the first place. The last terrible blow was when their property was taken back. A fleet of high-end cars, custom-made clothes, and designer goods were being taken away one piece at a time. They used to be big parts of Pretoria's influencer culture, but banks and other financial institutions took back their most famous cars, leaving behind broken dreams and empty parking spots. Their Instagram feeds used to be full of pictures of expensive cars and trips, but recently they started to post much less flashy content. The excess had only been a short-lived illusion. Reality had hit in a way that no one had seen coming. Social media, which used to be their playground, turned into the place where their demise was announced. Some members live-streamed their breakdowns to try to make sense of what was going on and keep their falling popularity. There was no doubt that their desperation and shame were very raw. Once looked up to, the Gucci gang's attempts to make things right failed, and fans watched, some shocked and others growing more angry. Once in charge of Pretoria's influencer scene, they were now just a shadow of what they used to be. As their followers dropped, they faded into the background. Their rule didn't last long, and in the end, it seemed like the very thing that helped them rise had become the thing that showed how they were going to fall. People who used to have successful social media accounts that showed off their endless wealth now had accounts that were full of desperation and justification. Every post used to get likes and comments from loyal fans, but now it gets laughed at and made fun of. Fans who used to look up to them began to stay away from the once iconic faces of Pretoria's influencer culture and stop following them. The gang's fall was seen by everyone in real time. It wasn't just a guess. A group of young men were living their dream. What had been a story of ambition gone wrong was now used as their story wasn't one of victory or even survival. It was one of shame, betrayal, and a quick fall from the top. Because there was no one left to honor their broken empire, it fell apart quickly, leaving them to pick up the pieces. The aftermath of the Pretoria Gucci gang's downfall has been a mixture of quiet disappearances and failed attempts at comebacks. The once vibrant personalities who had dominated social media are now scattered. Some have faded completely from the public eye, their once promising futures clouded by their own actions. They've retreated from the digital spotlight, perhaps too embarrassed or too damaged to try again. Their Instagram feeds, which once showcased luxury brands and perfect selfies, are now nothing more than distant memories of a life they can no longer claim. The faces that had once been the epitome of success have now become a rare sight, leaving many to wonder where they've gone. Meanwhile, a few members have tried to make quiet comebacks, though they've done so with little success. Gone are the flashy displays of wealth, replaced by more humble attempts at re-entering the influencer game. But the truth is, their brand of fame can't be easily replicated. They may have learned the hard way that fame, built on illusion and materialism, can be as fragile as a house of cards. Their attempts to regain any real traction feel hollow, lacking the spark they once had. Social media, which had elevated them to superstardom, is now indifferent to their attempts at resurgence. The followers they had once attracted so effortlessly now watch from a distance, no longer entranced by their flashy lifestyles. The lessons learned by the Pretoria Gucci gang are a hard reminder of the dangers of chasing fame with no substance. Their story is a cautionary tale for anyone who thinks that wealth and image can substitute for hard work, character, or authenticity. What they built was fast, too fast, and it came crashing down just as quickly. They were living proof that in the world of influencers, popularity can be fleeting, and the consequences of building a life on borrowed money and borrowed time can be severe. Their hunger for quick success led them into a whirlwind of bad decisions, and the price they paid was steep. They had no foundation to stand on, and when the pressures of their lifestyle became too much, everything they had worked for dissolved in an instant. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.